So I'm now going to hand over to Leanne Ehren. So Leanne, would you like to introduce yourselves and kick everything off for the evening?
Hi, so thank you so much for joining and for logging on. It's a really, really busy time right now with COVID-19. I just thank you all so much for this evening, for tuning in to this. I guess you're probably thinking, why is this important and why am I here? So I'm not going to bore you with my life story, if that's all right, but I just want to give you a couple of minutes of insight into why we're doing this webinar and why I'm sitting here hoping to share some of my tips with you. For the last 18 months or so, I've been up and down the country sharing my experience and my opinion about mental health and wellbeing and communications with lots of different communicators and different leaders. And that's because I crashed and burned after being in a crisis comm situation, and my mental health and well-being really did take a hit a couple of years ago. So I was one of the many communicators that responded to the Greater Manchester terror incident in 2017 at the Manchester Arena, and worked the crisis with many of my colleagues. And it wasn't until about 3 months after that crisis, after I left Manchester, moved on to a new lovely job with new colleagues back home down south, that I had a really tough time with my mental well-being, the first I'd personally experienced in my life. And I had a breakdown and was later diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder, which is an anxiety illness. And it was as a result of what I experienced with my team during the crisis. So I have learned a lot over the last couple of years, and I have learned a lot about mental health and well-being, because what I was finding was that as I was starting to reintroduce myself back into the communication circle, lots of people were saying to me, "Oh, where have you been? What have you been up to?" I started talking to people about my poor mental health, and people started talking back to me. So I realised that as a bunch of communicators, we have a really unique set of challenges that are in front of us day to day, but also particularly during crisis. So within 6, 7, 8 months of being back out there, I decided to stand up and start talking about it and share my story. Since then, I've been a mental health and wellbeing advocate within our industry, and I'm super passionate about it. And I'm really passionate to be here this evening talking to you all. So before you think that this is going to be boring, please don't. I just want to spend the next 10 minutes, because if that's all you listen to, I really want you to take away some of these top practical tips for looking after the mental health and well-being of you and your comms team, or you and your colleagues, or maybe even it's you and your leaders if you're looking upwards, during crisis as we hit COVID-19. So I have got 7 tips, and I'm going to give them to you now. So please bear with me, even if this is all you listen to. So here are my notes. As you can see, as with crisis, we don't have time to do slides because we're comms people, so we write it on the back of a fag packet. So tip number 1 is that you can plan, even if it's on a piece of paper. Planning will really help your mental health and well-being. It will help you digest mentally what is in front of you. Writing stuff down and getting it out is really important. It's also a great resilience tool, and it's also a bit of a failsafe as well, in case you walked out of the office and didn't come back for one reason or another. So get a plan down. Even if it's a plan for today, a plan for the next 2 days, or a plan for the week, please get some kind of plan down. There's no excuse to not do it. Tip number 2, team resilience. We all need rest to function. When we're working at crisis, the adrenaline is going up. I know, I've been there. I work my best in crisis, but oh my God, I just come crashing down at the end of it. So we need to look at our team's resilience as a whole. So splitting up the team, if you're able to do so, is actually the best way of doing this, I've personally found. And I find my special little remedy, a team of 3, this might be one person. If you've got a team of 10, it might be 3-3-3. You need to decide that. But split the team up. So the first part is business as usual. We still need to keep those project comms. We still need to do stakeholder engagement. We still need to maintain all of that business as usual element. So put a third of your team on business as usual. And the second 2/3 of your team are the ones working on the crisis. 1/3 of those team should be working on the crisis, and then the other third should be resting. They should be off. And it's those two that interchange, and they can go on, off, on, off. And sometimes that might be a day. They might actually be off and out of the office for a day because that's what's needed. Why is it needed? Why am I giving my staff extra time off? Because when they're at work, you are asking them to work so much harder and so much more intensely than you have done before. When we're working at times of crisis, the demand on us emotionally is a lot higher, and then the higher we go, the harder the crash when we come down. So that little remedy of splitting the team up into 3 is, I believe, quite a good little way of keeping you resilient over a long period of time and a prolonged period of time. So number 3, linked in with that, on-call. Do you have an on-call rota? If you don't, maybe now is the time to sort one out. If you do, look at that rota and maybe review it. Previously, maybe you used to have a member of staff on call for 1 whole week, and you might change it every week, every other week, 1 in 8, depending on what you do. During times of crisis, from what I have found, to ensure that your staff get the rest mentally but also physically, switching off, being able to switch off their phones and move away from things, you might need to reduce the time that people are on call for. So look at potentially reducing it. So if you're used to maybe doing 1 week, depending on your business and the demands on your business, potentially look at doing it for 2 days. Maybe it's 3 days, maybe it's 1 day, maybe it's 12 hours. But your business needs are going to decide, but really delve into that and see. I appreciate that there are some people out there who are the only ones that work round the clock. So if that is you, you need to try and seek other times in the day when you can switch yourself off. Maybe that is actually during work time, when you ask a non-comms peer to cover for you during a working business, so that you're a little bit more resilient out of hours. So that was tip number 3. Tip number 4, emotionally, during a crisis, we want leadership and we want guidance. And one way that we can do this is by assigning duties within the team. Now, I'm not talking about your skills-based duties. Certainly, please look into that as a really good crisis comms planning technique. I'm actually talking about well-being duties. So assigning someone in your team to be a well-being monitor. This job could move around in and among people, or it could be something that one person sticks to. I definitely took on that role after a few days when I was up in Manchester. You could have someone assigned just to looking after the food side of things. Now, I appreciate the minute we're self-isolating, we're remote working, or some of us are self-isolating with COVID-19. But if you are in the office, are you eating? And I'm not saying, are you eating? You're saying, oh yeah, Leanne, I'm eating. Actually ask someone in the office, in your team, actually don't even need to be in your team, to check, has everyone eaten lunch today? Has everyone taken a break? Can someone be the exercise monitor? Has everyone got up and walked around the building or walked outside the building if it's safe to do so? Sounds like a zombie apocalypse, doesn't it? But assigning those duties is really, really important. This is going to sound really bizarre, but can you assign someone to bring a bit of laughter into your team? And this is really important if you're remote working as well. Can someone be tasked with providing the funny gift for the day, or with the light alleviation, or some stories, or something that can just help really bring and boost morale? The other thing that's really, really important is, I believe, is assigning, and this might not seem like well-being on the front of it, but assigning someone to be able to reflect over what you've done as a team over, whether it's the last 2, 6, 12, 24 hours. It might be a longer period, to see what have we done, like looking at lessons learned, but actually to pull out the positives and think, what can we celebrate? That is so, so important for the emotional well-being of your team, to be able to stop and recognize the good stuff that you have done, because I appreciate right now you're going to be going full power ahead, as we are, as I am, and we're not going to stop and look back and look at what we've achieved and what's worked and been successful. Obviously, from good comms practice, we should be evaluating as we go anyway. So ties in with good well-being from that point. Okay, so number 5. This one's really important for me. This is event space. So event space is about creating a space where there is no judgments at all. Allowing people, this is a time of so much intense emotional pressure and intense mental pressure on us as well. We've got so much going on inside and out of work. We want event space where we can release our frustrations without judgment. And as leaders, I'm looking to you to create this space safe for your teams to do. Now, it is where many of us are working remotely. This might be a WhatsApp group, or it might be some space on Microsoft Teams or on Yammer, on Slack, or whatever you're using, to just get that stuff out there. Let people share their concerns, share their frustrations about internal, external, what's going on, in a safe space without judgment, where they're not attacking each other, where there's no blame, but you're just letting it all out, draw the line underneath it and move on. This is going to be so, so good for your team to feel like they're connected, like that they're being listened to, and that there's the opportunity there for them to share some of their concerns with you. So, only got a couple more, so bear with me. Handovers. Oh God, this is so important. Hand over properly, because if you don't, your headspace is going to be like, oh God, I forgot this, and oh, I can't, oh, I need to message that person about that. To enable you to switch off for your own well-being, please do a handover, and make sure it's a really efficient one as well. And this person who's coming on, you've got the responsibility. When that person's in front of you, they're still there, they're still working, ask them, make sure you've got everything they need. Don't ring them once they've gone. Give them that time to turn off the phone and to switch off. Final of my top 7 tips. No one failsafe. If there has been one person in your business who has been doing all the COVID-19 comms up until now, they should probably stop. Not only are they physically and mentally going to be really, really tired now, and they might say that they're not, they might say that they're at the top of their game and they work best under pressure. In fact, the science is out there, guys. You're on this, you're on the downward. So ensure that the leadership baton is moved round the team. Ensure that people have got the information they need. Ensure that people feel empowered to say when they need a rest. Create a rota on who's leading on each day. For those people who used to work in newsrooms, it's like, who's on the news desk today? It's that sort of, moving it around. Who's going to be that point of contact and leading on that day? But no one person should be feeling this burden, because however much you say to them, oh, do you need any support, or do you need any help? They're not going to say that they do. We're comms people, we're the can-do people, we're the fixers. We're not going to say that we need help. It's going to be in 2 or 3 months' time that they're going to really, really feel it. So right now, please, leaders, I'm imploring you to plan so that you do not have one person who the buck stops with when it comes to all of the information. So those are my top 7 tips. If you're going to disappear now, I'm really happy that you listened to those. But please stick around, because we've got loads of great other stuff.
That's great, Leanne. Thanks very much for running us through all those top tips this evening. I think there's definitely lots of food for thought for us there, and lots of great stuff we can bring back at the moment when we're all under the pump and running around with different challenges and priorities. So thanks very much for those.